welcome to Born Wild, the show that takes you to the heart of wild India. It takes you up close and personal to some of India's most unique, vulnerable and endangered animals, all of whom face challenges to their survival. From the trifecta of habitat loss, the human-animal interface turning negative and poaching. India is one of the 17 mega-diverse countries of the world. Our wildlife and our wild landscapes are some of the greatest national treasures that we have. It's up to us to ensure that it's protected for the coming generations. It really is now or never. In this episode, we walk in the footsteps of the ghost of the mountain, an extraordinarily beautiful cat, the snow leopard. It's also considered extremely elusive and secretive simply because of the terrain where it's found. Some of the most inaccessible parts of the world, up high in the Himalayas and other mountain slopes in different 12 member state countries. If the cat is to be seen, winter is the best time to see it, and that is if the cat is okay with you seeing it. That's when she comes down from the snow-clad slopes further down, following the wild ungulates as they come to feed. The snow leopard is the apex predator of this high-altitude mountain ecosystem, which is a combination of scrub and cold desert ecosystem. It's because of the apex predator that the rest of the biodiversity in this area works. So come with us as we walk in her footsteps and meet the other fellow beings she shares this beautiful ecosystem with. High up and far away in the clouds lives a magical creature. A being of ice, snow and blue skies and grey mist. A being who is the empress of the high mountains, mythical, secretive and magnificent. A ghost, the snow leopard. This special footage, shot in the mountains of Mongolia by the World Wildlife Fund for Nature, shows us a mother with her cubs, not a fierce predator at the moment. The snow leopard is an endangered cat, one of the 4 leopard species found in the world and one of 3 found in India. The snow leopard has been named the flagship species for the high-altitude mountain ecosystem. A flagship species is an animal selected to act as an ambassador, icon or symbol for a defined habitat, issue, campaign or environmental cause. And in this case, she represents the beauty and fragility of the high-altitude mountain ecosystem or the cold desert ecosystem.
A snow leopard, which is found in 12 countries of Central Asia, is one of the most elusive, iconic and charismatic species of Asian high mountain ecosystems.
In India, the World Wildlife Fund for Nature set up camera traps and have done long surveillance of the cats in Ladakh region of Jammu and Kashmir. This camera trap footage is from Kargil. A medium-sized cat, the snow leopard ranges up in the high mountains, and between the inaccessibility of the terrain, the cat's own diurnal behavior of being more active at dusk and dawn, and their ability to camouflage and hide makes them a difficult cat to study and observe. We decided that although it was summer and therefore almost impossible to spot the snow leopard, we would walk in her footsteps to understand her home and report on the conservation challenges. It was a fine, bright day when we started out our trek in the Hemis National Park. High above, over the rugged peaks, however, we could see the grey clouds rolling in. Perhaps there was a hint of rain on these lower slopes and a hint of snow for the upper reaches. Snow-clad peaks soared in the distance, and it was hard to accept that we were already at 3,500 meters when we started our climb. However, the thin air and lack of adequate oxygen quickly allowed us to accept the fact that we were standing on the lower reaches of the roof of the world. Our goal was to climb to Rumbak village, one of several villages inside Hemis National Park. All along the way, we were followed by streams and rivulets from the snow and glacier melts that fed into the Zanskar River that then further fed the mighty Indus. These mountains we were stepping in are one of the greatest sources of water for India, and the snow leopard is key to the health of this ecosystem.
Density of snow leopards in any ecosystem depends on how strong the prey base is. And this prey base of a snow leopard is totally dependent on high Himalayan pastures and not on the trees. So it's very vital that we maintain these pastures in order to have good population of snow leopards.
Rumbak is a small village, just 9 homes, and they run homestays for travellers like us who come here for various reasons. In this season, we come to admire the beauty of the mountains and trek through the park, and in winter, travellers come to see the snow leopard who come down off the higher slopes to Rumbak. Just behind me is Rumbak village, one of the villages in Hemis National Park. For people who come here to look for the snow leopard, especially in winter time, when they come down off these slopes, because all of these green slopes that you see around me get covered with snow, and the ungulates come down further for feeding and the snow leopard follows them. So when people come here on snow leopard expeditions, they get to stay in this village and do homestays. As you can see to my left here is like a stone wall that's running really. What the villagers here have done is they have sort of fenced off parts of their own fields and some of the pasture land that is naturally growing vegetation here that the ungulates feed on. The reason they've done that is to prevent the wild ungulates from coming and feeding on everything here that they then store and use for their own livestock. Here in this high remote mountains, for the local community, their fields that they grow in the summer and their livestock are really their only sources of livelihood. They need to protect both from predation. In winter, they're entirely cut off from the world as snow and ice makes any journey out of here a major hardship. At one time, the snow leopard was a source of hardship as she would kill their livestock, but now with greater awareness and tourism bringing in a lot of income, the snow leopard is seen as an invaluable fellow being on the landscape.
19-20 साल की उम्र में अपने गांव में देखा था कारगिल में बकरियों को मारते हुए उस टाइम पर इतना अच्छा एहसास नहीं हुआ था कि स्नो लेपर्ड का इतना इंपॉर्टेंस है मैंने WWF के साथ जब काम किया तो मेरे को एक चीज़ एहसास हुआ कि स्नो लेपर्ड एक्चुअल में एक ऐसा एनिमल है जो बहुत इस एरिया के लिए खासकर इस तरह के एरिया के लिए बने और यहाँ के लिए बहुत खास है.
While Rumbak faced its own challenges, we learned that most local communities in and around these mountains in Ladakh faced predation of their livestock by the leopard. We visited Matho village on our return from Rumbak and met with the village elders in a gathering organized by WWF India. They told us how it was hard to protect their livestock, especially in the winter. A young woman even showed us some footage she had captured on her phone of a leopard eating one of her sheep in her backyard.
पिछले साल इधर वो स्नो लेपर्ड आया फिर घर के पीछे वो घर जाके खाया फिर मैं छत पर करके मैंने वीडियो बनाया मोबाइल से वीडियो बनाया.
One of the biggest problems with the snow leopard predation is not that they kill only a few sheep or goats, but that they can kill, when they enter an animal pen where the livestock are kept, nearly every single animal in there at one time.
See, the multiple livestock killings only happen inside a corral, which is a livestock stocking pen. If you see in the wild, they will only kill 1 or 2 livestock. What happens, it's a very typical cat instinct. Once a snow leopard enters inside a livestock stocking pen, then all the animals, they get very scared and they will start running helter-skelter. And then this typical, cat instinct triggers and snow leopard will try to catch whatever is running and kill it. It of course doesn't consume all of them. It will be able to only feed on one of them. But in the process and in the melee, it tends to kill much more than it would do otherwise.
We met an old man who had lost over 50 of his sheep in one night to a leopard. This is a crippling loss for the locals. This kind of long-term predation of livestock has led to retaliatory killings of the animal, although not in the kind of numbers one would expect when one analyzes the actual losses suffered by the people. For most part, people live in harmony on these landscapes that they share with other fellow beings. Their Buddhist beliefs and culture preventing them from seeing any animal as evil or something to be killed. This sentiment has been returned by the leopards, who have never ever killed a person or even a child on these landscapes.
While talking about protection of this species, you can't separate people from wildlife or wildlife from people. The reality of life is they have to coexist. So we have to find ways and means wherein we create an atmosphere, a congenial atmosphere for people as well as for snow leopards, so they can happily coexist in this landscape.
In order to help mitigate the human-leopard interface from turning negative, the World Wildlife Fund for Nature in India has been helping the local communities with predator-proofing their animal pens.
We have a participatory mechanism wherein WWF invests very minimum, and we invest in those things by like these. For these communities who are poor and marginalized, it's difficult for them to procure a proper mesh wire right from place like Jammu, to procure a good door which is safe for their corals. So by doing these type of interventions and by ensuring that we modify the same coral which is unscientific earlier, which is vulnerable, through these small interventions we are making these corals predator proof, and then in the long run idea is to create predator-proof villages and further predator-proof landscapes wherein again snow leopards and communities happily live together.
WWF, in working with this human-animal interface to reduce any kind of conflict, to mitigate it, are coming up with better coral designs where it's sturdier walls in the first place. They've put these mesh nets across, as you can see, very strong pieces of wood. So now this, once the animals are in here and this door shuts, really, there's no way for the leopard to get in here, and this will really minimize the losses for the local people here, who otherwise, some of the women told us, stay up nights trying to protect their livestock from the snow leopard, especially in winter. WWF India is also working hard with children and local schools to educate them and create awareness of their own landscape and all the animals that share these spaces with them. This amazing ecosystem functions only because of the presence of its apex predator, its fragility woven in with the fate of the ghost. One other conservation challenge faced is the growing numbers of livestock owned by the local people. Being a low-yield system or a system without much vegetation owing to the scarce rainfall, the available pasture lands on these mountains are used by both the local people and the wild ungulates like the blue sheep, the argali, the orioles and others who are the snow leopard's wild prey base.